This is a criminal illegal alien with prior criminal activity that should have been reported to ICE. We were prohibited, law enforcement was prohibited because of sanctuary laws, and that led to the encounter with Officer Singh. But let's go back to Ron. An immigrant. Immigrated here lawfully and legally to pursue his American dream. He achieved that goal. And his dream was taken from him. No, we shouldn't politicize it, but we have to have a conversation about restrictive legislation that puts our communities at risk.
You could hear his brother sobbing right there. Here now, attorney and conservative commentator David Wall, a supporter of the president, and immigration attorney Francisco Hernandez. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hi, Mr. Henry. Thank you for having me.
Good, thanks for being here. David, when you see the brother there sobbing and the sheriff saying flatly, this officer should still be alive, what goes through your mind?
Well, I mean, you know, Mr. Arriaga came from Mexico to Arizona, but of course he came to California in the end because California is a sanctuary state. He comes here and public officials, on the local level and Sacramento, tell him, basically, we're going to protect you from deportation. Mm-hmm. Not only do you not have to worry about being deported, but we're going to protect you from that. The L.A. County Sheriff himself came out the other day and said he's going to forcefully remove ICE from L.A. County Jail.
So let Francisco jump in.
Francisco,
how do you defend that?
Support from California hold on. Don't interrupt.
Oh, okay, that was my fault.
The support from California politicians for these criminal aliens is through the roof, and it's got to stop. I have a client whose fiance was killed by a guy who was deported 5 times, arrested for 5 felonies. He came back, he got drunk driving, smashed into this beautiful young woman and killed her. There's a hung jury. He's being retried in January for murder. He's got to be convicted.
Horrible tragedies, one after the other. Francisco, what's your response?
Okay, bottom line, no one can oppose the federal government or Immigration Customs Enforcement or DHS. They could have picked him up any time. Have you seen this guy's rap sheet?
They don't honor the detainers.
He shouldn't have been.
They don't
now
honor
you're
them.
interrupting. Thank you.
Let Francisco
can I
go.
say something?
Go ahead.
Deporting him would not have done anything. He'd have been back because he's been here for decades.
Wait a second. I have to interrupt there. So deporting wouldn't have done anything? Hang on, Francisco.
Okay,
I will let you respond. I'll let you respond, but you just said deporting him would have done nothing. The sheriff, who knows better than you and I, said this.
No.
And then hang on, I'm going to let you react, but let's listen to the sheriff.
Could have been preventable. And under SB 54 in California, based on 2 arrests for DUI and some other active warrants that this criminal has out there, law enforcement would have been prohibited from sharing any information with ICE about this criminal gang member. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not how you protect a community.
Francisco, I want you to answer him directly, please.
That is an absolute lie.
Come on.
When you book somebody into the jail, the fingerprints go through the FBI and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. A city, a county, a state cannot block the federal government. This guy should be serving a life sentence in federal prison. What do you mean a sanctuary city? It didn't matter. You are correct. This tragedy should not have occurred. But even if you build a wall right now, it would have kept him in. It would not have kept him out.
So even by your logic, how was he not deported then? If you're saying, oh, we could still why wasn't he deported, number one? And number two, I do have to say,
that is the question.
How dare you call the sheriff a liar? He's in this community.
Because he is lying. He is lying that immigration couldn't have picked him up. Homeland Security picked him up. The federal authorities should have picked him up. Have you seen his rap sheet, his convictions? He should have been serving a life sentence in prison already.
Okay, let David jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're not honoring the immigration detainer orders. They're releasing these guys without telling INS and ICE. They're freeing them in the community. The Sacramento politicians don't want guys like Mr. Arriaga jailed or deported. They want their votes. That's why this is happening. That's why it's happening on a national level. And you know it, Francisco, and Ed knows it, and I knows it. It's all about power.
Mr.
They
Henry.
could easily honor the detainers and let INS pick these guys up.
David made your point. Francisco,
the
please.
federal government, Mr. Henry, the federal government does not need a city or a state to honor their detainer. They can go pick him up anytime they want. The detainer, it is a courtesy. It is comity to the state and the cities. We're not going to pick him up until you let them out.
Francisco, I've heard you make this case, and maybe it's some legal theory, but in practice, what I'm trying to get at with you is that the sheriff on the ground who's dealing with a murdered police officer is saying you are wrong. This is not Ed Henry. This is the sheriff. Are you telling me that the sheriff who's dealing with an officer who, by the way, left behind a widow and a 5-month-old son,
why did the sheriff let him out in the first place? Why did the sheriff let him out in the first place? He has a duty to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And it was the sheriff that let him out, apparently, from 10 different...
Hold on, Francisco.
Yes.
Hold on. He was convicted of 1 DUI. He wasn't deported.
Please don't talk over each other. David, one last time, and then Francisco.
He was convicted of 1 DUI. He wasn't deported. He was convicted of another DUI. He wasn't deported. He was suspected of committing another DUI. He was being chased, and he didn't want to get caught for the 3rd DUI, thinking he might get deported this time, so he shot and killed the officer. That was his solution. He came to America not for a better life, not to work hard for his family like a lot of immigrants do, but to turn to a life of crime
Francisco,
and kill cops.
final point.
You're right. You're right about that. He should have been in federal prison already. Absolutely. Why did the sheriff let him out in the first place?
But why do you keep saying, how do you know that this sheriff let him out?
Maybe he failed to do his job and honor the Constitution?
This sheriff says that he was blocked, essentially. How do you know more?
He was blocked. Who blocked him? He's the top gun in the county. Who's going to block the sheriff, the top gun in the county? Who blocked him? A city council member? Seriously? Come on, guys. He's covering his butt because he didn't turn him over to the federal authorities. It's on him.
Covering his butt? He didn't have anything to do with not notifying the federal authorities at all.
He can notify the federal authorities. You can notify the federal authorities. It's the federal government. They don't have to listen to the cities.
When the jailers don't do it, the guys don't get picked up and they go free.
They're his employees. They're his employees.
Gentlemen, we're not going to solve it tonight.
They swear to uphold the Constitution.
But this is a big problem in this country. We're trying to get at it. We appreciate it. Francisco, David, thanks for coming in. Let's now go to Congressman Darrell Issa.